Yeah. But
Yeah.
just knowing your journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It's your journey.
Exactly, definitely. And just having some grace for yourself as well. Like, you're learning, this is something that's really new, regardless of whether it's your first, your second, whether you're having twins or triplets. Like, each journey is so unique, and just having grace with yourself and just knowing that you're enough will make such a difference as well.
Yeah, I love that. You are enough. Absolutely. Because that is something that as women, and so we just feel like we know it. Feel like we can't hold this. Who am I to whatever,
Exactly.
No one else can do it like you. And that's your superpower. Yeah, I love that. And that's what I love about what I do, is empowering women to take back their power and step into a new way to create a life that's in alignment. Jessica is a holistic birth and postpartum doula, hypnobirthing educator, and proud mama of 2. With a passion for supporting women through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, she offers a holistic care that empowers mothers to trust their intuition and embrace their unique birth journeys. Jessica believes that birth is not a one-size-fits-all experience and is dedicated to helping women feel calm, confident, and supported every step of the way. Welcome to the Awakened Mama podcast. So I am really happy to have you here because it has been on my heart for a little while to speak into my birth story and just the season that I was in during COVID. I love when you said you wanted to come on and join me to speak about this, because you believe in the power of hypnobirthing. And that's when I first came across hypnobirthing, when I was pregnant with the twins. And I actually listened to an audible by, have you heard of Mindful Hypnobirthing with Sophie Fletcher? Yeah. So that's where it all began for me. And I really had to find my strength in just my own ability to birth the twins the way that I wanted and the way that I knew my body was designed, because it was a high-risk pregnancy, simply because it was twins and I was 40. I just had so much pushback and so much scare tactics given to me by the hospital system. And I really had to just find my own voice, my own strengths, know that I could do this. I've done it before. It wasn't my first rodeo, but it was just different for me. So I hadn't birthed twins before, so I really had to just be okay with my own journey, and knowing that it was going to be all good. And so I dove into that, and I have this little book a friend gave me, and this is where I wrote everything for the twins when I was pregnant. And this went to hospital with us, and I had my 12-year-old there, so she came to most of my appointments with me, because my partner wasn't able to come because we weren't vaccinated. So the whole time it was, if she wasn't there, I was on my own, and I really had to sort of be confronted continually by all of the scare tactics. And so this really helped me know my power. So I love that this is your work. I had my birth affirmations. So I found these really powerful, and I'll just read a couple to give people an idea of what a birthing affirmation is. As my body grows, I enjoy each change, knowing that my body is creating the perfect home for my babies. The closer I get to my baby's birth date, the more relaxed I am. The more relaxed I am, the easier it is to feel in control. When I go into labor, I will relax quickly and ease into my rhythm. So it goes on. I have a few pages of those. I love that. Hypnobirthing played a huge part in me having the birth that I wanted. And it wasn't all like I wanted a water birth, and I really had to let go because the water wasn't available. So there were certain things that I had to let go, but it really allowed me to hold my power and have the safe birth that I wanted for my twins. So for everyone who doesn't know, can you explain a little bit about hypnobirthing and why mindset matters so much?
Sure. So thank you for sharing that, Crystal. That's amazing. And I'm so, so happy that you were able to have the amazing birth that you had. So hypnobirthing, it's really, to be honest, it's a set of tools that you can take on your birth journey wherever. So we focus a lot on breathing techniques, okay, because there's certain things we can control and certain things we cannot control in labor, but we can always control our breathing. And so having some breathing techniques to help you through each stage of labor is really powerful. We learn different ways to relax the body. So relaxing the mind, relaxing the body. A lot of people may not know, but often when you're in labor, you tend to clench your jaw. And when we do that, we're also clenching our pelvic floor. And so just learning those cues of when to relax down after every single surge. We go through quick hypnosis tools as well. So, just I call them like your North Stars. So some quick tools to bring you back onto track, to sort of recenter and feel calm again. We go through affirmations, as you were saying before. So affirmations are amazing. They work a lot on the subconscious mind, on the laws of repetition and the laws of harmonious attraction. So the more we repeat something, the more it sinks into the subconscious mind, the more it becomes a belief system, the more likely you are to kind of embrace that during labor. We also go through, I call them holistic birthing tools. So each person who teaches hypnobirthing teaches it slightly differently, but I'm also a doula. So I like to sort of set up the partners as daddy doulas. So we go through some really practical tools, really understanding the pelvis, different optimal birthing positions, how the partners can do, light touch massage, rebozo, acupressure, hip squeezes, how they can support the mum through each stage of labor. And then we also go through preparing for the 4th trimester. So we do that whilst we're pregnant because that's the best time to get educated about it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Obviously, it's much more nuanced than that, but that's just a quick overview of it.
I love that you support partners, because for me that was huge. Aaron and I sat down and we did this together, this book, and he listened to the Audible book as well, so that we were both on the same page as to what support that I needed, because he couldn't be there for me during the appointments, but we certainly intended on him being at the birth, even though we had no idea what that looked like during that time. Like, the rules changed right before we were able to give birth to our babies, and that was just, it was obviously meant to be, but it was stressful leading up to. So we planned everything. I mean, I really wanted a home birth, but with twins it wasn't a possibility. And he had a copy of all of my birth preferences and my it was very clear on my birth plan. So we worded it to start with, we understand birth is unpredictable and appreciate your support for fulfilling our wishes. Please provide information and options should any concerns arise. Thank you for helping us have a great birth. And then I went into, I do not consent to cesarean. With labor, it was labor naturally, no cervical checks, membrane sweeps, water breaking. It was very specific, so there was no guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a copy of this, and it was in his labor bag. I had a copy of it, and it's in this book that my daughter had. So we were all across to be able to support me, which was really important. And I love that you spoke into breath too, because through all of my pregnancies, my births, that was what I used. That was my pain relief. I did have gas with my 3rd birth. That's a whole nother story. It was it was not the birth that I really wanted for the twins. I did have interventions. I was induced, and it just made such a difference. And that's why I was determined that there was going to be no interventions this time. And breathing is just such an important tool, and not just for birth, but just for everyday life. And so many people aren't doing it right. That's
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that that's something supporting the women and the breathing tools, because I can relate so much to how much that helped me. And and having Aaron know how to touch me, like, because he's a massage therapist and Kahuna massage, and it's very soft, and I was like, don't touch me like that. Like, I need to be like, I want you to really rub my back hard, my lower back. I need the pressure there. And it's just so he knew how to support me during labor, so that in that moment I wasn't frustrated, because that's my not theme self of my human design. I didn't want to be frustrated in that moment. Just, this is how I need it. But for women who haven't had a birth before, haven't found their power, I love that you're supporting them with this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because partners actually haven't been in the birthing space for very long. They're actually it's a very new concept for them to be in, the birthing space, witnessing their partners give birth. And so they don't have that wisdom that's passed down in lineage, because it's predominantly been a female only area. And so what I've kind of noticed, I suppose, with mainstream antenatal classes is that they don't sort of set the partners up and how to specifically support in the birthing space. And, everyone can kind of be a little bit blasé about it and be like, oh, I'll just, I'll be there on the day and I'll show up. But it can be a really trying experience seeing someone you love go through, a challenging time and seeing them in pain. And so often what happens is the partner can sometimes disassociate with the experience and sort of sit in the chair. And then you've got medical professionals coming in who know a lot more about medicine than you do. And they sort of watch it, and it can be quite a traumatic experience. And also what we've noticed is since males have been in the birthing space, there's been a major kind of increase in epidurals. Because if you're a birthing woman and you see your partner there and they're quite stressed and they don't know how to support you, and you can see that it's actually distressing them seeing you in pain, and then you have the option of having an epidural, you are much, much more likely to take that. Even though you're understanding that this is a normal process, that this is physiological pain, that your body is working so incredibly hard, you tend to kind of go for, an epidural, because that can, yes, that's relief for you, but it also is easier for the partner to witness you give birth as well. And so what hypnobirthing does is it sort of brings it back to that innate birthing experience, and having the partners have kind of wisdom and tools and ways to support and ways to sort of self-regulate themselves through breath work, so that they can be present, they can be calm, and sort of show up in the way that you need, which is also where birthing preferences come in too. And I love that you guys had such detailed birthing preferences, and that your partner could really show up for that as well. Because when you're all on the same page, I'm like, teamwork makes dream work, doesn't it? And when a mum is in labor, she's really in this instinctive part of her mind. She shouldn't really be in the analytical part of the mind making those decisions. So if she has a team around her that understands and can support that, then she can kind of go inward and do that really, powerful work of birthing her baby.
Yeah, absolutely. It really did allow me to just be within myself and focus on what I needed to do, because I know that Aaron and I were both on the same page. And, it was written here black and white. Do not offer me pain relief. I'll ask for it. I want to follow my natural body, follow my body's natural urge to push.
Yeah, and they also work as a really good tool for researching as well. So in my classes, I have like a 5-page kind of birthing preference list. And some of it that is so that you can actually do the exploration, like, do you want an episiotomy? What does that actually entail? You know, what options do we have? Do you want to keep the placenta? Do you, you know, I don't want to hop into a pool, things like that. But also, you know, do you want vitamin K injections? And so people sort of don't realize that. And it gives you a chance to kind of explore it. And does this kind of resonate with you? What are the risks? What are the benefits? So that you can show up on the day and know all this, because it's too hard to make those decisions when you're in labor.
100%. The third stage literally had that in there too. Physiological third stage, no needle. Allow the cord to stop pulsing before we cut the cord. We really wanted to do the traditional way of the candles, where
I love that.
Yeah, but you know, being in hospital, you're not allowed to have flame, so we cut.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron did, but it just, yeah, it would have been such a just a beautiful touch to be able to do that. But yeah, we really did have everything there, and I know how powerful that was for us. So anybody listening, yeah, do go to Jessica because I just know how important this work is to do. And if you don't have all the tools and all the time or whatever it is for you to do this research for yourself, you don't know where to start, having someone like you to be able to support both the couple, not just the birthing mum, but the couple as the partner as well, just makes such a difference to be on the same page. We kept the placenta, so that was something that we had to be encapsulated it. So
cool. How did you find that experience?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest, it was gross because so
let's be honest,
Aaron, he's a chef by trade, so he was like, well, I can cook it. Like, I've never done this before, but I'm sure I can do it. But not cook it, but dehydrate it, you know. And so yeah, he did. He dehydrated it, blended it down, encapsulated it into veggie capsules, and that was part of my postpartum healing, was to have my capsules every day. And yeah, it was honestly like looking at it after birth, it's beautiful. You look at it, and I had a fused placenta, which I was really intuitive during my birth. So I knew my baby's archetypes. I also said what they were going to look like. And not to everyone, because it would seem like a crazy person or get it wrong. But I knew that Lemuria, she was going to have the dark features like me, and her high energy. She's a little warrior and a queen, warrioress. And Ocean, he was such a lover. He moved more slowly. He's also a magician like me. And he would cuddle up to Lemuria, so like often on the same side, and I had like this lopsided belly. And it was beautiful. I just knew. I was like, he's going to have red hair and blue eyes, and like his dad. Like I could feel it, and they were born, and yeah, like that was them to a T, and is them to a T. And it was such a beautiful experience to really lean into my intuition. I just kind of listened to my body and tuned into, no, my babies are healthy, because when they do the scare tactics of, well, you can't go full term. Why can't I go full term? We're meant to go full term. That's why it's full term. Like that's the whole point,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And if I had have not listened to my body and known that my babies were healthy and everything was meant to be, and ripped them from my body like they told me I needed to, then I know that they would have ended up in an ICU. Like, just way that everything was, Lemuria just made it out. We left the hospital less than 24 hours. I think that if I just hadn't have gone within, hadn't have listened, hadn't have really got clear on what our bodies were designed to do, and I hadn't listened to the hospital system, it would have been a completely different story. So,
you know, the hospital system is definitely more medicalized it is. And by default, on like the subconscious mind, whenever we go to the hospital, why do we go there? Because something's broken or you're sick. And so what happens is when like a woman's obviously in labor and she's going to the hospital, even though that she's a healthy mum having a healthy child who's had a healthy labor, you go there and we've kind of obviously experiencing, pain and sensations. On a subconscious level, women often switch into becoming a patient.
Yeah.
And so when we become a patient, this is something that's happening on a subconscious level. We often give away our power. So we go there, you've done amazing, you've been laboring at home, you've done all of this good work. We go to the hospital, we switch into patient mode. And what's the first thing we do is we hop up onto the hospital bed. And then we have hospital policies and things that kind of come in. So, okay, we'll check the baby's heart rate. It's not a problem. But then it's like, okay, let's do a vaginal examination. And without realizing that you've got options, you've got no options. So if someone hasn't done any sort of research and they're like, okay, we'll just do, a vaginal examination, hop up onto that bed. It's just going to take a wee moment. That is a disruption into labor. That actually is a disruption, into your hormones, how we're feeling, and can really slow down the process and can sometimes actually end up being, the first step in a cascade of interventions as well and other medical assistance. I like to sort of think that we are mammals. Okay, and even though we don't sort of talk about it, we are highly functioning mammals. But when we come back to like how mammals birth, normally it's somewhere quiet, somewhere dark, somewhere they feel safe. Okay, and when we then, are birthing in the opposite of that, it changes the chemistry in our bodies. So say a mama cat is giving birth and she gives birth to, say, 3 little kittens. She's under a garage, somewhere she knows, somewhere she feels safe. It's nice and dark. And then all of a sudden she hears a dog barking. Her brain doesn't analyze whether this dog sounds ferocious, whether it's close. What happens is we have a chemical reaction that happens in the body that shuts down labor. So her cervix tightens, her uterus tightens. So she will not give birth to the remaining 2 kittens. Sometimes she'll even switch where the environment and where she's giving birth until she is feeling safe again. And so how this comes back into a hospital setting is that when we stop feeling safe, our bodies react. Okay, and so if you're getting a vaginal examination and it's something that you didn't really want, and having someone that you may not have met before, putting their fingers in an area that, any other time is very sacred and kind of we don't do that, it has a physiological effect on our labor and it slows things down.
Yeah. It takes me back to my third birth. One intervention leads to another intervention, leads to another intervention. So my reason for the intervention was, I didn't know any better then. I didn't know enough about birth. I'd had 2 babies before, but when it comes to all of the statistics behind interventions, all of those things, I wasn't fully awake yet. And so being that my ex, her father, was due to go back to work, he worked half an hour out of town underground. Now, my first 2 births were early, so he had booked time off and he was due to go back to work because it was 10 days past my due date. And I was on the list and they never called me in to be induced. And so I walked in and I was like, he's got to go back to work. Why haven't I been called in? And they were like, you've got a healthy pregnancy. We didn't need to. Which now in hindsight, I love that they weren't pushing for it. but I know that my first birth was 8 hours. My second birth was less than 4 hours. This time they had me at too short of a birth time because it just keeps getting lesser for him to make it. And so I was like, he misses out or we do this now. And that's why I was induced. So they gave me the gel, nothing other than the painful contractions for 6 hours. I didn't dilate. I was just in intense pain. So that was fun. and then they were going to break my waters, and it was an exact hour to the minute that I gave birth. So I had to dilate that in an hour, 10 centimeters. So that was really painful. So then now I'm having gas, and so I was I use hot water and breath work for my pain relief in my previous labors. So I said, I need a hot shower. And then everyone disappeared. All of the workers were gone. And I said, I'm going to have this baby. I need to push. You need to go find somebody. And as he's coming back, I heard her say, like she knew my body better than I did without even looking at me, she doesn't need to push. It's not time. And I'm like, how could she tell me that? Like, how could she say that to him? Like, I'm the one here. She opens up the curtain, looks at me and goes, you're going to have this baby when we get you out of here. And I'm like, well, duh. Like, yes. So that's what I'm saying. And so then she took me into the room to give birth and said to me, which I thought at the time was to do a quick examination, because back then I was, yep, okay, we do the examinations. We do all the things that you say we need to. She said, hop up on your hands and knees. Hopped up on my hands and knees. Meanwhile, I'm the urge to push is there, and then we just push through. And I had a tear. And afterwards, I couldn't turn around. Once, like, I'm already pushing a baby out. Like, I'm on my hands and knees on the bed. Like, this is it. That's not how the position I gave birth in with my previous two. It's not how I'm comfortable giving birth. And she said, after I had a tear, she said, oh, women who prefer to give birth on their hands and knees tend to tear. Why would you ever suggest that, knowing that? Like, I don't prefer that. I was told, and I just listened. So yes, I was like, after that experience of the intervention, which led to another intervention, and not being listened to, and felt like I wasn't being heard, and that, I was like, with the twins, I was determined to have the birth that I really knew that my body could and hold my power, because I was like, I'm not having a birth that's dictated to me. And that's how I felt like that birth was. Let's do this, do that. Yeah. So I could relate when you were speaking into that yes, that was my experience.
And isn't it interesting, like even now you can kind of visually go back and you feel all those feelings, like that was a traumatic experience. But saying that, like, I gave birth within an hour, some people were like, oh, that's amazing, you're so lucky. But for you, having that and having that disempowerment and having that medical assistance kind of like put on you and being kind of gaslit as well, it's made that, birthing experience, quite a traumatic memory in its own way. It has, and it's not fair. It's not how we're supposed to feel during labor. And sometimes it's regardless of how you birth your baby, it's how you're treated that makes such a difference.
Yeah, it felt so clinical. And when you were saying about in the wild and the bright lights and all of those things, I was like, oh my God, take me back. Yes, that was so clinical. Like, I felt like all the lights and all of the, like, it was just do this, do that. There was no rhythm, and there was no stepping into how I wanted to birth. No one asked me. Like, I had no power. It was just, this is the way it is. And with the twins, I wrote in here, quiet, dark room during labor, birth, and golden hour. And I also told them, because they told me there was going to be like half a dozen medical professionals in the room. And I was like, no, there's not. There's not. No. And they were like, yeah, well, we need this professional and then that professional. And then there might be students. And I was like, no, there's not going to be. There won't be students. And you can have two professionals in the room and everyone else can wait outside. they can wait outside the door, and then we can call upon them if we need to. And that's exactly what happened. Ocean's heart rate dropped after I had the Myria, and so they said we need to push. And now my body didn't feel the urge to push yet. So if I had a home birth, I wouldn't have known he really needed to come out for his safety. So I was in the right place.
100%.
And they said, we just need to get somebody in here to check baby's heartbeat. Is that okay? And so they knew to ask me, because I had written, you need to ask before anything. And I said yes. And they came in, they checked, and they said to push baby. And so it was all right. It was all how it was meant to be. But it was because I was very, very clear with them on what I wanted. And yeah, once he checked, he left it with. So there's no pain.
That's awesome. And one thing I sort of think about with like hypnobirthing is you've got hypnobirthing, which is these beautiful holistic tools, but you also have more like if you're birthing in a hospital, you have more of a medicalized model, but they can actually work really beautifully together. And so I sort of think, regardless of where you birth, you can bring in those tools to, help yourself feel calm, help yourself feel centered. It gives you a little bit more of a breathing space as well if you are needing to make decisions around medical assistance, or even if you're needing to have a cesarean as well, remaining calm, doing deep diaphragmatic breathing, connecting with your baby, having your partner there to support you can make what could be a traumatic kind of birthing experience feel a lot more holistic and aligned with your birthing preferences.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love that. I love that everything you do is for the good of the birthing partner, and no matter it's not this is right and this is wrong. It's what are your preferences, and there's no okay. Well, if it doesn't work out, say you want a water birth like I did. It didn't work out. Well, let's not get stuck on that. Let's move into what else can we do to support you? What else is in your preferences? And let's make your birth the safest and most aligned birth. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So one of the things we sort of talk about is often when we look at our birthing preferences, it's kind of what do I want, what do I don't want, but also what it should be is like, what do I want to feel? So, you want to feel safe, you want to feel respected, you want to feel listened to, you might want to feel calm. And potentially even if it doesn't quite go to how you've envisioned your birth, if we have those elements in there, you're going to have a much more positive birthing experience.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that I definitely didn't feel when I went to my hospital appointments. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel safe, because I felt like every time I went, it was, here's all the things that could go wrong. And we need to be prepared for a cesarean, and we need to get you booked in, and we need to, and I'm like, every time I come here, like every single appointment, can we not discuss how healthy my pregnancy is? And can we not discuss my birth? And I had to go to the head person and say, no one's listening to me. And he said, they're probably intimidated. And I'm like, I'm not an intimidating person. Why would they be intimidated? They haven't even asked. And he listened. And I love that, because he was someone who, there was just this ease between us, where he was always someone that I could go to and say, what is going on? And so he took me under his wing to put me with the right person that was actually going to listen. And I think that women need to do that. They need to find someone who's going to listen and not just stop at, oh, well, they're just telling me that this is how it has to be. And I'm probably going to have whatever, because this is what they say. And I'm like, no, that's not good enough for me.
No, 100%. It does make a massive difference when you've got a good birthing team, and people are on your side, and they are respecting your wishes, and they are validating you as well. And you know, I've supported a few mums who have kind of had to come up against kind of like the system or the hospital policies, and this is what we recommend. And you kind of want to, the default reaction is just to agree and kind of, you know, as women, we often have more people pleasing tendencies. Like we want to, you know, be liked, and we want to be agreeable. And in this situation, sometimes you agree on default rather than going, actually, no, this doesn't really align with my birthing preferences. This, you know, what you're suggesting, you know, isn't the course of action that we really want to take. And you are actually entitled to ask for a second opinion. And that's something people don't realize as well, because I mean, in any situation, two people looking at the same problem can kind of come up with quite different outcomes. And this can be the same in a birthing setting as well, of what they feel is appropriate or what they can support and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have one person who thinks that a woman can be within her right to have the birth that she wants, and a complete other health professional who thinks, well, no, this is how we give birth, and let's lock in a date, and let's make sure that you're safe and we do the birth that we do because we're going to control this outcome. And that's how I felt like that's where they were leading. It was a very controlled, this is how it should be. And I'm like, that's not natural. That's not it.
No, definitely. And I think, I mean, we can all agree that we want a healthy baby delivered safely, but that should be like the benchmark of what everybody wants. But what often happens is they negate the experience of the woman who's birthing her baby and how that will affect her later on, physically and psychologically as well. And I don't think, I personally feel that should kind of come back to that kind of holistic intention. How is someone feeling? Are they feeling listened to? Are they feeling supported? Is there any more information that they need? How can we do this that best aligns with their preferences?
I love that you mentioned the words later on, because the last thing that you want to be taking into your postpartum healing journey is like the shit, like that didn't go right, the regrets, the I should haves, the traumas. Like, let's talk about postpartum depletion, because it's just, I feel like it has no voice. People aren't talking about it enough. And so many women that I speak to, and my own experience, we go into this and everyone says, you're going to do great, you're going to be fine. Nobody tells you about what you really need to be prepared for, staying in that love bubble, and how to prepare for the fact that you're going to, you should be just at home, healing, loving on your baby, taking care of your baby and yourself, but having other people stepping in to help, what that looks like. Because when people go in and they like, everything's going to be rosy, they're going to have a baby and it's going to be all perfect, and then they feel this, oh my God, hormones are wild, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, I'm so exhausted. Speaking to your take on postpartum depression.
No, definitely. I always say that birth is like your wedding day, postpartum is like your marriage, right? So essentially when you go into labor, you're going to be in labor for like potentially up to 24 hours, and then you're going to have your baby. Postpartum is forever. So once you've had a baby and you're in postpartum, that's an experience that has changed. You've forever changed after birthing your baby. And what a lot of cultures do that we do not do quite so well in the Western world is they really honor that time and that transition into motherhood. And so we call it postpartum. So it's different from postnatal. So postnatal is more baby-centric. Postpartum is more mother-centric. And the idea is the first 40 days sort of depict the next 40 years, which is another hormonal transition, which is menopause. And so what we want to do after birth, and you want to think about birth, is you're as open and vulnerable as you're ever going to be. You're literally birthing a human. The next 40 days is when everything is kind of recalibrating, and we're resetting that foundation of health as well. And so when we think about the first 40 days, there's a few different pillars that I just want to touch on. So the first one is rest, and that doesn't just mean like resting on your couch. That means like deep rest. So resting in bed, having your baby on, you're doing skin to skin, breastfeeding. In Chinese tradition, they say 2 weeks in bed, 2 weeks on the bed, 2 weeks beside the bed. So you can sort of see how that transition is very, very slow. And so what that allows is it allows our body to recover, recalibrate. We're reconnecting with ourselves as well. I feel personally, but don't quote me on this, but we have a lot of kind of pelvic floor issues. And I personally believe because we haven't had that time to recover properly. So often you'll hear about the woman and they're like 2 days after giving birth, I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Like that is not giving your body enough time to rest. That's not giving your pelvic floor enough time to, kind of spring back up. This is more of a gradual process. So resting really helps with that. It also helps with bonding with your baby as well. So skin to skin, it helps with breastfeeding. So breastfeeding and getting a routine can take up to sort of 6 weeks. Also during that time, your womb, your uterus was sort of it's much more expanded, and it takes that time to shrink back down to pre-baby size. The area where the placenta was attached was the size of a dinner plate, and it lays kind of like a graze. So we've got a lot of internal healing that is happening during that. So you can kind of understand why rest is so important. The next one is warmth as well. So we're wanting a warm environment, we're wanting warm foods, warm drinks, and warm company as well. So having people in your environment that bring you peace and joy. So coming back to warm food and warm drinks is, your body's doing so much work of healing. And you can imagine then adding in like an icy cold drink. Your body then has to use that energy to warm up that drink. So that's taking away energy from healing, from producing breast milk to warm up a drink, right? We're wanting warming foods as well, because warm foods are nice and nourishing on the body, nourishing on the soul. In a lot of cultures, and I'm specifically India, so Ayurvedic type traditions, they also make sure you wear socks as well, because we lose a lot of air through our a lot of heat through our feet, and also wearing a scarf as well if you're going outside. So you sort of always nice and snug and warm. Obviously it can be a wee bit different in like Australia, where it tends to be a bit warmer, but kind of keeping those sorts of principles in mind. The next one is nourishment, so nourishing foods. And so in the first 40 days, what we want to do is we really want to focus on foods that are, deeply nourishing and easy to digest, okay? So things like porridge. So porridge is amazing. It's high in energy. It's got lots of nutrients in it. It's a comfort food as well. So anything that brings oxytocin is always good. You can add things to porridge. So you can add in berries. You can add in cinnamon, which is nice and gently warming as a spice. You can have like a nut butter and like a nice natural honey. So you're getting a lot more nutrients. Other things that are amazing.
I have a plant-based protein powder, and it's no nasty. So I did use it through my pregnancy. I've been using it for 7 years, but and my breastfeeding journey. And it was literally like, because it's got 17 different superfoods in it. And so you're getting your protein for energy and stuff. But it makes it, even though it's plant-based, it makes it your porridge creamy. and so tasty. And so I have it in my overnight oats, or like in winter where you're warming your porridge and that. So yeah, you can absolutely find your flavor, find whatever it is that's obviously healthy and no nasties in it, because you know you're at a time where
100%.
you need to be putting in good things into your body. I mean, I believe always, but this time is crucial.
Yeah, definitely, because we are wanting to rebuild the foundation of your health. Some other quick ones are having like bone broths, or you can have a vegetable-based broth as well, because again, it's a really easy, simple way to be adding nutrients into the body. Having things like slow cooker meals as well. So whether you're a vegetarian or you eat meat, having slow cooker meals means that it's the vegetables or the meat are a lot more easier to digest, so you're getting a lot more nutrients out of that. So yeah, so we've got nutrients, we've got warmth, we've got rest, and what else do we have?
Find how hydration was really
yes,
important.
Hydration.
Especially when you're breastfeeding. For me, with the twins, my journey was so different. And when I'm speaking to other mums of multiples, so mums with triplets and quads, like some of them say they feel like they were robbed of their postpartum journey, because I can relate to what they're saying, because it's so different. Like with the amount of pressure, like feeding two babies. Some people will feed. I fed tandem most of the time, which then led to twin toddlers who would only ever do tandem because if one's feeding, the other one wants to. And so finding that like you're always feeding, or there's always someone who needs to be changed, or finding your rhythm is a lot harder when you've got more than one baby. And I've done a baby and a toddler. It's not the same, mamas. There is a lot of, I see it on pages where women are sharing, other women are comparing. Oh, me too, I've got a toddler and a baby. And they're like, you don't get it. And they're like, no, it's worse for me. Why are we comparing? It's not the same. Also, I had my first two a year and a half apart. You've got a toddler who's having a different sleep pattern. You've got a toddler who's having a different feeding pattern. You're not trying to get two babies and two babies fed, two babies to sleep all at the same time. And it can be overwhelming when you're finding your rhythm. And I think for first-time mums too, who have never had a baby, who've never been down that road of knowing what to expect during postpartum, and then it's like, boom, I have so much to deal with and I can't even. So for us, I knew that it was going to be, I'd had babies, but I hadn't had twins. So I was like, let's be prepared. And being that Aaron also has a chef background, so he did a lot of frozen meals. He cooked up a lot of batch meals. We froze them and we would just heat them up in the oven. That saved us so that he could be hands-on at home too, and not have to be in the kitchen all the time. With thirst, always having a water bottle, because the amount of milk, like I always had no problem with milk supply. It was always a lot. But keeping up with the water, like always having a drink bottle there. And my protein shakes were another thing that, like, they're quick and you can just digest them. Like, so it's not like, oh, I don't know what to have, because the thought of and knowing I'm indecisive. So what do I feel like eating? Oh, I don't know. And you're hormonal, right? So you're like, I don't even know what I want to eat, and I just need something now. And so that like angry that you get. And so having them on hand, where I could literally just have my shaker bottle and I could have my sachets, because you have an option of having sachets. It was something that was like a go-to. So absolutely, women, find your go-to that's going to be easy, that you can go, that's 100%. What I'm going to have. Your meals prepared, like just set up so that you can stay in your love bubble and allow you to just really find your rhythm, because it's not easy, whether you're a first-time mum or you're not. Like it wasn't a first time mum, but I'd never had twins. So, you know, I mean, even if it was just another, not just, but like just one baby, you know what I mean? Like it's still, you've got one baby and then you've got children. Like it's
100%.
all one baby. You're finding your rhythm. You've got to find your rhythm no matter what your journey is, and whatever
100%.
you can do. Like I had my mum there, so that's another thing. I was like, I'm gonna need my mum there. I called in the help. She come and stayed with us, and now she lives with us in the granny flat out the back, and she's here to be able to help us. So I love that. And if some people say people want to come over and they only ever want to hold the baby. Find your voice. Find your voice. That is like, if people want to come over and they want to hold the baby, great. I'm going to have a shower. Or once you've finished holding baby, could you help out make me a snack or go do the dishes? Like, just don't be afraid.
Definitely.
If people want to come over, they're obviously close enough to you that you've allowed them in that love bubble space. You should feel comfortable in telling them what support you need. So
for sure. Another one that's really helpful is folding washing as well. And it can be really nice, you know, having someone there to help fold washing. But coming back to, you know, meal prep, that is like the number one thing that I really recommend doing while you're pregnant is prepping. Ideally prepping for like a few weeks worth of meals, because not only when your partner comes home, you know, that's their time that you actually want to be spending with them as quality time, but having that nutrient dense food can just be, it just takes such the mental load off. And often when you are postpartum and even when you're pregnant, you become quite indecisive because your brain's going through this amazing thing called brain plasticity. And so cognitive thinking and sort of decision making can feel quite big. And so we want to cut down on that. Another thing that if you can afford it, or even planning to put a bit aside for it, would be having a cleaner. So just coming in once a week to say do the bathrooms and a bit of vacuuming can be a massive help postpartum, especially when you're learning everything's new. But having that extra support there, whether it is, you know, friends or family or, you know, paid support as well.
Yeah. And you touched on brain there. I want to go there.
Yeah.
The brain fog. So, okay, if you've never had a baby and you've not experienced this, you have no idea. Like our brain changes shape. So every time we give birth, we need to be ensuring that we are feeding our brain. We need to get our brain health back, because it's going to help that recovery process so much more. And for me, I've been supplementing for 7 years, and it's something that helped me through my pregnancy. I knew that I was giving my babies the best, and because I didn't have much room in there, you know, to grow, and I was like, at least I know that, okay, they might not be fattened up, but I felt like they were growing enough with what they needed because I was giving them the right nutrients. And it obviously, like, I went full term, I had a healthy pregnancy, and they were over the weight that they needed to not be in ICU. So like, I obviously did the right things there with my nutrition. And it was, omegas was one of the things that I took. So then leading into my postpartum was, and they're plant-based omegas. So for people who take fish oil, I just want to let you know, in case you don't know, that fish don't naturally contain omegas. They get it from the plants. So you'll need to stop. I eat fish, but I eat fish because I like fish. But having the fish, and then I used to, a lot of years ago, I used to take fish oil. And then that like gross fishy burp.
Oh, yes, it's disgusting, right? That repeating feeling.
Yeah, gross. So yeah, these are great. And actually the twins have them because they're in a little veggie capsule, and they love them. They chew on them. I swallow them. But
Yeah.
They got into them one day. That's how they started taking the omegas. They got into them one day, and they were just like eating my capsules. And I was like, because they have the chews, the children's chews, and I was like, oh my God, stop. And I thought that it was going to go bad. They just ate them,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh God, we're going to make a mess. And no, they just were eating my capsules. Okay,
Oh,
so you
that's
guys
awesome.
you guys like them, and so. Anyway, yes, supplementing is something huge that helps, but it has to be like a natural supplement. Like, again, you are going through the biggest change that your body really needs the best nutrients it can have. And if we can talk into, oh, but I eat well, the farm soils are nutritionally depleted. That we are not getting the nutrients we need. Stop being in denial. Like, we all need more nutrients. And so
100%.
yeah, that is something that I'm huge on. I mean, it's why I do what I do with women in health and wellness. But yeah, fruits, vegetables, berries, omegas, all of that. It's got your antioxidants. It's got what you should be having on a daily basis. It's just bridging that gap. And you eat a healthy diet, but it's just not enough. And this, during of all journeys, this is the time where you really need to say, okay, this is when I need to take care of my nutrition.
Definitely. And especially recovering in postpartum, and even especially if you're breastfeeding, your baby is going to take everything it needs from you. It's your breast milk is so intelligent. So say if someone's walking past and they sneeze, your body then makes antibodies to put that in the breast milk to make sure that the baby has the best chance of not getting, that cold. The baby's saliva communicates with, I suppose like your breast, and it tells it what it needs.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
It's wild, isn't it? Like it's
so intelligent, our bodies.
It is.
Yeah.
100%. So if you're not looking after yourself, you are like going to get depleted. And a lot of mums find that they end up getting like fillings after after breastfeeding their babies, and that's because your body is literally stripping itself to give it to your baby. And so having supplements, having a nutrient dense food, you can even get amazing postpartum powders now, so you can put them into your smoothies. There's a few that are around, and it's just like topping up your supplies. They also give you energy as well, and I think we need that sort of energy as well. A lot of mums rely on coffee, but if we can do that more naturally, then that's
I love that you say that. When I started 7 years ago, that was me. I was like I worked full time, and I would wake up and have my morning coffee, and then by lunchtime I'd come home and I'm like, oh God, I don't have coffee. And then guess what? I get home from work and I'm like, oh, or mid-afternoon at work, I'd be like, I need another coffee just to get through the end of the day. When I started taking these supplements, it's funny because it was a whole week where I made my morning coffee. And it got to the end of the week and my kids said to me, Mum, you're not drinking your coffee. Why? You need to stop. Just stop making it. And it was just so routine for me because I would make it, but then I didn't need the energy that I was getting, because all of a sudden I just had this energy. And I'd never felt that kind of energy before. You don't get it from the foods that we're getting now. And so I was like, I'd make my coffee. It's my routine. And I may have a sip of it. I may just leave it there. And because I make my coffee every morning, right? And so the kids were like, stop it. You're just wasting the coffee. You just make your coffee and then let it sit there. And I was like, oh yeah. And so I stopped making coffee. But I do drink coffee again because I do love coffee. I just love a lot of what I love, it not only the smell and the taste, but it's sitting down to that hot cup. And so then I'll like switch to cacao because I have ceremonial cacao here. And then I'm like, but then I miss the smell of the coffee. And then I'm like, so I go between the two. But yeah, I had to say, because that is something that's funny, like the energy, 100%, that I knew that if I didn't have these supplements, postpartum would have been so much harder for me. Like, because it really is next level when you've got multiples. It's just, I mean, it's hard enough with one baby. It really is. It's a beautiful journey, but let's be real, it's hard. hard finding your
It
feet.
is.
It's hard knowing, oh, this baby's colicky, or this baby likes to sleep all the time.
100%.
Is this normal that my baby, should I wake my baby? Because, and this is like so many questions that mothers are asking that have no idea. We don't have any idea. It's just,
No.
yeah,
We
there's no
don't,
right
and
way.
you know, some babies don't sleep, and then you kind of go into that spiral of comparisonitis of,
Yeah,
you know, what other babies are doing, and then we have this idea of what is a good baby as well. Like, oh, I mean,
yeah,
you know, and then you've got your breastfeeding journey that's adding into that, whether, you know, you breastfeed easily, or whether, you know, you don't have the enough milk supply, so that's its own journey, or whether your baby has a lip tie or a tongue tie, or, you know, so we've got so many things that are happening that
and
we
then the
have to
mum
kind of
guilt.
navigate. The mum, yes, that comes into it.
Yeah, I had that with because I breastfed my kids, but with my third, which was my birth that had interventions, I had to stop breastfeeding her because I produce a lot of milk. So that's my thing. Like, some others don't produce enough. I could go into the shower and literally write my name on the glass because I'm just like, I just have a lot.
Squirting all over the show. Yeah. I only
Yeah.
have to think of your babies.
Exactly. And she was a bird feeder. She would just feed a little bit, a little bit, a little bit throughout the day. And I'm like, I'm producing all this milk. She's not drinking it. Now, the advice I was given from the medical professionals was, have you tried expressing in between feeds? Have you breastfed? That produces more milk. Like, what does that do?
Yeah.
I'm just so, yeah, I felt like the medical system wasn't helping me, and I ended up in hospital with cellulitis, which just sounds like I had fat. Which, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's mastitis with a secondary infection. So much worse. I felt like I just couldn't move. I was so ill. And they say, okay, get the medical system. I'm in hospital, and they say, we're going to need to keep you overnight. And I go, okay, where does my baby go? Where are you going to keep my baby in here? Like, where's the baby sleep? And they said, we haven't got room for the baby. I said, well, how's that going to work? And I said, well, we'll discharge you. You can go home. So, yeah, I went home, but they were supposed to keep me, but because I'm like, I feed my baby, this is how I ended up here. Like, and so, yeah, there was no help. And I just was like, once I got sick again, because I had 2 kids at home and a mining husband who was mining out of town, I had no help there, was like, this is it. Like, I can't keep getting sick, and I can't look after my baby when I'm sick. So I had to put her on formula, and I had so much guilt at that time because I had breastfed my other babies and was like, why can't I do this for her? And like, there's so much mum guilt in all of our journey. Like, and that's kind of where it starts, in that postpartum phase where your emotions and your hormones are just like wild. And I have to put my baby on formula, or my baby's not sleeping, or your baby just does all the perfect things and mine cries a lot. And it's just like this comparisonitis that, yeah, I'm not in that place now. I can release the guilt, but I mean, it's been a journey. I've been a mum for 22 years, so I've had my fair share.
Gosh, yeah. It is a journey, though, isn't it? And it is, you know, you have the wisdom of hindsight, and you know, we often sort of think, you know, what would you tell yourself, you know, like one piece of advice? And a lot of it would be just to let go of the guilt. We're all just figuring it out. I'm like, motherhood is kind of like folding, you know, a fitted bed sheet. You know, no one really knows how to do it. We're just winging it. And it's so easy to look at in someone else, especially when we've got Instagram, people bouncing back, or they're off traveling the world with their babies, or, you know what I mean? It's very easy to kind of idolize someone else's life and what we see, just a tiny snippet of it, but really not understand or even know, you know, the nuances of it, you know, the breastfeeding journey, the mum guilt, the recovery. And it's so easy to see that and think, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not enough. And that can be, you know, that can really feed into it and feed into our self-confidence as well, and our self-worth. And, you know, it can really be the thief of joy as well when
Yeah,
you're coming into
yeah,
postpartum, because
yeah,
you're so busy, you know, trying to figure it out, and then comparisonitis to other mums. And then we sort of, you know, we're not enjoying it as much as we feel we should as well, which can be really challenging.
I love that you said is the thief of joy. That is something that that we say in our business. It's like stay in your own lane, because comparison really is the thief of joy. So I love that you said that, because I can relate to that, and it's absolutely something that I have learned on my journey in motherhood, in business, and in so many different areas of just like stay in my lane. This is my journey, and it doesn't need to look like that. And yeah, if women can just accept one another, support one another, empowered women empower women. Like, let's just all be there for each other and not
100%.
hate on or not compare to, or, you know, all of those things. I think we would just be able to find our rhythms a lot easier if we weren't in those modes of comparison and judging and all of those things, because it would just make the process, and it does, it makes, when you can let go of that, it makes the process of your journey a lot. I mean, you're still going to go through like your ebbs and flows. You're going, you know, all of that.
It's a journey. We'll just say that. I'm always like, it's a roller coaster. There's a few loop-de-loops, you know, got the highs
Strap
and the
in.
lows. Yep, it is, isn't it? Though, you're like, right.
Yeah, but just knowing your journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It's your journey.
Exactly.
Yeah,
definitely. And just having some grace for yourself as well. Like, you're learning, you know, this is something that's really new, regardless of whether it's your first, your second, whether you're having twins or triplets. Like, each journey is so unique, and just having grace with yourself and just knowing that you're enough will make such a difference as well.
Yeah, I love that. You are enough. Absolutely. Because that is something that as women, we just feel like we have it. Feel like we can't hold this. We're, you know, who am I to whatever, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. No one else can do it like you. And that's your superpower. So yeah, I love that. And that's what I love about what I do, is empowering women to take back their power and step into a new way to create a life that's in alignment within their own values and what they love, and find out what their strengths are to really just create a life that feels right. It feels aligned, and like I lean into now a lot of energetic work and human design, astrology, archetypes, which makes such a difference to how I show up, because I get it now. I'm like, oh, I understand. That's why I'm indecisive, because of my authority is just, yeah, it just makes sense when you step into your power and you go, this is why I do what I do. So tell me, what brought you to what you do? Share a little bit about your journey.
Well, I kind of came into it when I was pregnant with my son, Leo. So we'd been sort of traveling overseas and living in a van, and I'd spent time working in Scotland, and we came back to New Zealand to essentially, I was ready to have a baby. I'd actually wanted to get pregnant when we were traveling, but my husband's a lot more grounded, should we say, than I am. And he's like, what about logistics? What about, and I'm like, okay, no, that makes sense. So we came back, you know, and I got pregnant literally the next month. I just, you know, I sort of very much believe that we are very in tune with like our children, like our spirit babies and that as well. And so I had this little spirit baby that was just like knocking, like it's my time, I'm ready to come in. And so that's how that kind of happened. So, but we were living away from family, and I decided, even though when we came back and we were flatting, we really didn't have much money at all. We just sort of started jobs, that I was like, actually, I really want to do hypnobirthing. I really want to prepare for this birth as holistically as possible. That also meant for me going very low tox as well. So kind of getting rid of, any sort of chemicals in our house and having very natural, foods and, just as much as we possibly could, water filters, things like that. And so that kind of started the journey of kind of going through that and using the hypnobirthing tools throughout my pregnancy and my labor. And then I kind of came into postpartum and I was like, bam, I did not realize how underprepared I was going to be. And my husband, lovely, gave me this book. It's called The First 40 Days. And it sort of started me on my postpartum journey of sort of inquiry about what is this? Why have we not been taught this as well? And so it wasn't until we had our second child, Vienna, that I sort of dove into that work. It was kind of like, when you're sort of drawn to something and you don't really feel like you've got a, like a choice, you're like, this is like my soul contract. Like I'm supposed to be doing this work. And so I trained as a postpartum doula. This is probably 7 years ago. So I was definitely ahead of the time. People were still sort of like, what is a doula? What is postpartum? And so I was kind of like, okay, maybe this is a little too soon. But I also studied in hypnobirthing as well. So I started teaching hypnobirthing and I really loved that. And even from that stage, I was bringing in elements of postpartum. And then I was kind of like, actually, I really want to be part of the birthing, the birthing experience as well, the birthing space. And I sort of thought about, do I want to become a midwife? And it took me a wee minute, but I was like, actually, I'm better as a support person. And so I studied to become a birth doula and sort of took up that as well. And so I suppose like over the years, I've just kind of added them all in together. And I think that they all work very symbiotically as well, because when you're preparing for birth, you really should be preparing for postpartum. And sometimes how your postpartum experience is indicative of how your birth experience is. And, even becoming a birth and postpartum doula really has impacted how I teach hypnobirthing as well. And so that was kind of the journey as to where I am now and how I kind of got there.
I love
And
that.
so, yeah, it's like something you can always build upon as well. So I've, trained in Reiki and spinning babies and aromatherapy, and that all kind of gets woven into it as well.
I love this spinning babies because that's something that I came across pregnant with the twins, and it was definitely something that, knowing that someone was going to be present in the room who knew how to assist if I was breech, or if the baby's breech or one of the babies was breech, was really important because, like I had said about the risk I had written down in my book, it was babies born cesarean are at risk for fetal hemorrhage, lacerations, fracture, nerve injuries, head entrapment, and always have a greater risk than vaginally born babies for infection and respiratory distress. Those are just facts. Will there be someone who is experienced and comfortable to deliver breech babies vaginally? So I needed to know, and having it written there meant that I didn't have to be the spokesperson. It was written there, and either my partner or even my 12-year-old, big responsibility. But at the time she was homeschooling, she was there throughout the journey. So she got to see a lot of, what I had been through in the journey of all of their little scare tactics. And so that was important to me. So, and that's where I learned about spinning. And I was like, oh, I like that. Yeah.
It really gives you like a greater understanding of the pelvis and the journey that the babies have to go through. And it gives you kind of practical tools to support or sort of facilitate that space as well. And so I think it is actually an important thing to kind of learn whilst you're pregnant, to be able to, support, call it optimal fetal positioning. So when the baby's entering the pelvis, and sort of certain exercises and tools you can do beforehand to kind of help them out as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. There was, when I was pregnant with my middle child, her head wasn't engaging, and I remember doing these different rotations with my hips a certain way positioned so that it was opening up, and I could just rotate her down into my pelvis. And that's it worked. She got down there. But yeah, I remember like, oh, this is interesting, learning about how you can feel how it's opening up when you're moving your legs in a certain way. Like, oh, I can actually feel that. So just teaching
100%.
women that sort of thing is really important.
Oh, it's huge, it is. And I mean, even just really understanding the hormones that are happening in your body, the oxytocin, the endorphins, the relaxin, and how you can kind of lean into that. And, that kind of comes into like spinning babies, and understanding that your pelvis actually becomes really quite flexible during that. And so when you're working with gravity and you're working with movement and balance, how you can really open up the pelvis by sometimes up to 30%. So that's a massive difference for when a baby is kind of entering it, and how they're going to be moving through it as well.
I love that. And I don't know when you said about the pelvis. I had dates. Do you tell women to have dates because they soften up your pelvis? So that when you go into labor, you just naturally, your pelvis is softened and ready to birth.
Definitely. So eating, they say about 5 dates a day helps to soften the cervix.
Yeah.
And so that, theoretically helps you to dilate quicker, which is probably something you didn't need too much help with looking back. But I mean, they're definitely, they're actually a great snack to have whilst you're in labor as well, because they've got the sweetness, so you've got the energy, they're easy to digest, but
and they don't raise your sugar too. So with people who are looking for something sweet to eat, oh my God, they are it. Like, have them. My twins love them. So do I, but with peanut butter, cut them in half.
I love peanut butter. Oh,
same.
So good.
My kids used to find me. I feel like I'm getting back there again with me and my peanut butter, but my kids used to find me in the cupboard, and I'd have a spoon and I'd be eating peanut butter out of the jar. What are you doing?
Yeah, or like a bit of dark chocolate with like peanut butter. I'm like, chef's kiss. So good.
So lately I've been putting peanut butter back in my smoothies, because I used to have chunky monkeys, but my smoothies were it was banana with chocolate and peanut butter, and now I don't put banana in my smoothies. And so I have a plant-based protein powder Perform that is like, it's 25 grams of protein, and then I have a chocolate or vanilla one, and they're only 13 grams. Well, not only, but they're plant-based, and they're really yummy. So what I've been doing is mixing the Perform that's higher protein with the chocolate, and then adding peanut butter, and I'm like, and cacao, and I'm like, that is so good in those like autumn winter phases where you're really craving something sweet.
Definitely.
It's delicious. Going off track a little bit, but they're good for like, postpartum, where you're like, oh, I just need something. I need to have maybe something sweet or something nourishing.
Definitely.
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 I have really enjoyed our chat today. I'm so glad that you joined us to have this episode, to let everybody know what it is that you do, and just the tools and all of the things that you give women. So tell us, you have a freebie for people. So where can they find you? And
sure. So my website is www.birthandbloom.co.nz, And on there, you can find a free birthing preferences download. So that is kind of what we were talking about earlier. It's a sort of like a 5-page birthing preferences guide. That kind of, I always recommend, filling out one and printing off 3 copies. So one for you, one for your midwife, and one for your birth bag. And so it just really helps everyone to be on the same page. It also helps you sort of research anything in that as well. So that is yours for free. You can also find me on Instagram at birthandbloom_NZ, and on Facebook, so same, Birth and Bloom NZ. And yeah, I would love to connect.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for joining us today. I have really enjoyed our session, and hopefully people will head on over and get your freebie and really just have a chat with you about how you can support them, because honestly, mamas doing this work, it is the most important thing you'll ever do for motherhood, is being prepared during that time while you're pregnant, and setting yourself up, knowing exactly what postpartum is going to be like, and having those tools. And if you're a high-risk pregnancy like I was, and you're coming up against the medical system and they're putting in your face all of the things that need to happen, this will really put you in your power to just have the birth that you want. And I mean, if it's not a high-risk pregnancy, or you're going through the system and you're just finding that they're dictating to you, or maybe you're just first time and you have no idea where to start.
100%.
That's you're it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I have just loved this conversation. I feel that we could have probably talked for another 3 hours. Yeah, we went really deep, and it was amazing. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your support. If you could take a moment to please like and subscribe, that will really help me build my channel. And if you loved any of the messages shared in any of the episodes, please share with someone that you think may resonate or may need to hear the message that we are sharing.